Hey, what's up, Patreon people? Touch Arcade Show coming at you hot and heavy, and all that fun stuff. So, um, I don't know. I don't really have anything super secret to say that hasn't already been said. We can
Secrets.
just hop right in with normal show. How's that sound?
Well, it is your last official day as, an
Well,
employee of
we're
TouchArcade.
recording this on Thursday, so
Oh,
breaking
second to last day.
breaking the third wall. But yeah, no, it's been really good. Thanks for everyone that supported. The Patreon thing was kind of I don't know, like a Hail Mary thing
Yeah.
that we didn't really think was going to work, and it worked out. Admittedly, it's dwindled over the years, but it's been a big reason why the site's been able to stick around as long as it has.
Yeah.
So super appreciative of everyone that always kind of supported us through all that bullshit. And I don't know. So that's all I got to say about that. I don't know. It's weird. I wonder if Patreon was the right way to go versus like coming up with like some kind of subscription thing that we managed ourselves.
Yeah.
Because like over the years we've had like, I don't know, we've been caught in the middle of a lot of really dumb shit with regards to like, remember like Patreon like changed their fees and then everyone got mad,
Yeah.
and it seems like God, almost like once a month now, like they make some decision, typically very reasonable decision at that too,
Yeah.
but manages to piss off a group of people. Um, and then you got to deal with like, oh, why are you still on Patreon? They banned this guy or
Yeah.
didn't ban this guy or
I think the problem is that it's not really super feasible for us to just invent some sort of subscription model to where we can take payments and stuff all on our own. I mean, we probably would have been able to figure something out through like PayPal or something like that. But
well,
the cool thing was Patreon was sort of like just this all-in-one package. You didn't need really anything for it, and that's what suited us at that time.
yeah, there's a thing that's actually half installed on the site called like Memberly or Memberful or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
we thought about switching stuff over, but like the problem was like I don't like once you have a bunch of people that are just like set up with something. Like
yeah.
I feel if we ever were like, okay, well we're getting off Patreon, like please subscribe directly through us, like you'd see like a 50% or greater drop off. People are just like, oh, all right, well fuck
Easily.
it,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't care anymore.
yeah.
So, um,
Maybe the thing to do is roll out something separate so you can run two concurrently, and then kind of see how many people float over and how many people stay,
yeah,
and maybe sometime down the road shut down one of them or
I mean
whatever.
the problem is the payment processing fees aren't really that much more favorable,
Yeah,
and the problem is it's an interesting question because it's like, um, do you lose fewer people because you're not involved in the whims of the decisions of Patreon,
hmm,
or do you lose more people because, or I guess the first question was like, do you gain more people because you're not at the whims of Patreon? Do you lose more people because there's a lot of people that, um, man, it seems like once you like break the Patreon seal, it's real easy to back other people. Because
yeah,
like they've got a pretty good app where you can like look through and find like cool shit, and it's like
yeah.
nowadays like when I hear like a podcast that I listen to or something like that that has like any kind of like interesting bonus for Patreon backers, it's like yeah, it's very simple for me to throw them $1 or
Yeah,
whatever to just
whatever.
kind of like hop on board with that. But if it was a matter of like, hey, we got a podcast, like come to our website and give us your credit card, I'd be like,
No,
I don't know.
nobody would do that.
That seems
Yeah,
like a lot of work versus like the two taps I did in the Patreon app that has it going through
right,
Apple Pay or whatever.
right.
So I don't know. Hopefully you guys find a better solution or Patreon keeps keeping on. So one or the other. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What the fuck is this cat doing? Get out of here. Um, so yeah, with that, I guess we can get the show on the road. Oh, and also, it's not the end of the video podcast, right? I'm going to keep producing this as long as they'll have me, I guess, which hopefully is a long time till you find a replacement.
Yeah, Yeah, I should probably figure out how to do all this stuff myself at some point.
Yeah, but I like doing this. I don't mind doing it, and it's fun
Yeah.
way to spend a Friday. So it's fine.
Don't mind doing it until you're swamped with your new job, and then it's some annoying
No,
obligation.
I told them like I told them straight up. I was like, look, dude, like I'm carving like 2 hours out of my Friday to do this, and that's like a
Yeah.
contingency of this. So it's already set up. So,
Sweet.
but anyway, we can get the show on the road here. How's it sound?
It sounds good to me.
All right. Hey guys, what's up? You're listening to the Touch Arcade Show. This is episode number 391. We're actually recording this on Thursday, March 7th because instead of the normal Friday time, you got some family stuff going on tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
We are going to see the Captain Marvel. That's the name of the movie, right?
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, like the only showing that we could get tickets for was like weirdly early.
Yeah.
So normally we'd be like, yeah, let's just record in the evening. Who cares? But
Hmm.
um, I don't know. I guess people are excited to see the Lady Marvel hero, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman did exceedingly well for DC, so I'm sure that this movie is just going to be off the chain for um, Marvel, right? That
Yeah.
seems reasonable to assume, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I thought it was cool how like Black Panther did so well. It's like you make a movie that represents these demographics that don't typically get to star in action movies, and everyone comes out to see it. It's
Yeah.
kind of something you would think they should do more of, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so if this is the first time you're listening to the Touch Arcade Show, it's probably going to be a little bit of a weird episode. This Touch Arcade, the website, as well as this podcast itself, is sponsored by, or well, powered by listeners like you guys. You can support us by going to Patreon at patreon.com/toucharcade. Or if you do any kind of Amazon shopping, we'd really appreciate it if you do it through toucharcade.com/Amazon. And we get a tiny cut of anything you buy through that otherwise would go to, I don't know, what's Jeff Bezos working on now? Rockets to Mars or something?
Sure.
I think that's actually a thing. Like, I'm not being sarcastic.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
So yeah, super, super appreciate if you do that. And if you want to update your Amazon bookmark or whatever, that would be neat. Otherwise, hope you enjoy the show and check out the website once in a while, toucharcade.com, for all your latest iPhone news, reviews, product reviews every now and again, podcasts like this, and other things that you'll like as a mobile gamer. So I guess to kick things off, this is, if you're listening to this on Friday, this will have been my last day officially as a full-time employee at Touch Arcade. I'm going to keep producing the podcast for as long as I possibly can. Like I already carved that out as part of my new job, that like I need to be free on Friday afternoons to do this. Because man, this podcast has been going too long to just be like, all right, see you, Jared. Have fun figuring that out on your own. Like, we're almost at 400 episodes. That's like,
Yeah.
let's see here. I'm bad at math, so let me pull up my calculator here. So if we're at 391 times 60 minutes, that's 23,460 minutes of podcast time.
It's a lot of minutes.
Yeah. So that's I think it's like a month straight. If you wanted to listen to every single episode, you could listen to it for like a solid 30 days.
I wonder if that's depressing for anybody that has listened to every episode. If they're like, oh my God, 23,000 minutes of my life.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a thing. I was thinking about, like, so remember when, do you guys, you know who Roger Ebert is?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that was a Chicago thing or what. So, when he got his, what was it, like throat cancer or something like that?
Yeah.
They were able to make like a voice synthesizer that sounded exactly like him, because he had so much recorded audio that, like, I guess the people that, like, whatever software company it was able to just like feed like all this content of him talking into whatever algorithm they have to like make a computer voice of his voice.
That's bananas.
So yeah, I guess in the future when I drop dead, if you guys want to hear what I sound like, you could just make
Yeah.
like a Siri voice of Eli, and um, yeah, that'd be a thing. But anyway, so I guess to tell the story of me leaving Touch Arcade, I've been for about a year now following this small startup called Game Club that originally just kind of, I don't remember what show I even ran into them or whatever, but it was like their mission statement was like, hey, it really sucks that there is not premium games on the App Store anymore. And like when they do come out, it's like a lot of them kind of sort of, I don't want to say like bomb, but certainly like don't do very well. I mean, like Oddmar, even, which was our game of the year last year, like,
Hmm.
when you look that up on the various like App Annie and Sensor Tower and stuff, like that game has barely cleared six figures, it seems like, again according to the analytics companies, which it's they're making guesstimates too, but like it just seems wacky that like you could release a game like that that would be like, I think we talked about this during the game of the year discussion, like that game would be like a system seller for like the Genesis or something.
Yeah.
Like if that was the platformer that like launched with, like if that was like, imagine like when 32X came out and
Mhm.
it was like, oh my God, like the games are so much more detailed. Like look at this game, Oddmar. Like look at how crazy that it just blends in, like the gameplay blends in with the animations and all this other stuff.
Right. Right.
People would lose their mind. And now it's like, I don't know. Buying a buying an iPhone game seems weird, which
Yeah. It's depressing.
I don't know. I mean, like I've thought that's pretty messed up for a long time, and like that kind of segues into the fact that a lot of these dudes that make premium games, like particularly the older premium games, they were released at a time where like there wasn't a lot of other ways to make money on the App Store. It was
Hmm.
like you just sold your game for a buck or two or three or whatever, and that was kind of it, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and like people give developers a lot of shit for not supporting their games, but like it's sort of like for on iOS it's kind of unprecedented to need to continually be updating your game compared to like any other platform, basically.
Hmm.
Like if you designed a game when the App Store launched and it was like for the iPhone 3G or whatever, it's
Hmm.
just like, okay, cool. Like here's my game. It runs on a what was the original resolution, 320 by 480 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it runs on this screen. Like we made it down spec so it doesn't really require the GPU of the 3GS, so it runs on the
Hmm.
3G and in iPhone OS 2.0 or whatever, and this is great. Like everyone's happy. Blah 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 blah. And then like the iPhone 4 comes out, right?
Yeah.
And this was the first time that we saw um, a bunch of developers being like, oh fuck, well now what do we do, you know
Nobody expected that and nobody planned for that. And it was kind of different than in the desktop world where there are a lot of monitors that have different resolutions. So you can kind of make stuff, expecting that it might be on a variety of different resolutions. And desktop games always have, all the settings that you
yeah.
can mess with and stuff like that. Like there was nothing like that on the iPhone. So there's really no reason to sort of expect something like that. I mean, in hindsight, it makes sense that they would get, higher resolution screens and stuff like that. But nobody even knew that iPhone was going to be a success. So,
Yeah, but I mean like, so remember when that iPhone, it was the iPhone 4 that got lost at the bar, right?
yeah.
Yeah, like so when that got lost at the bar and like people were doing like putting the screen under the microscope and stuff to figure out what
Mm,
resolution it was. Like I remember
yeah.
like there was a lot of people that like just didn't believe that it could be the
Yeah.
resolution it was.
Yeah.
Like there was a big like bunch of people on like Twitter and the Macrumors comments and stuff like that that were like, this is wrong. Like
Hmm.
you can't have a screen this high resolution on a phone. Like
Yeah.
the technology isn't there. So it's really hard to fault developers for like when you've got the iPhone 3G, the iPhone 3GS, like a couple different versions of the iPod Touch, and like all of them is like the same screen, same resolution, everything else.
Yeah.
Like, why in a million years would you be like, when we're making these 2D assets, we should probably make them
Yeah.
like ultra super high resolution
Yeah.
just in case
Yeah.
Apple ever like quadruples the resolution of their phone this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, the side effect of that, of course, was like all these developers got stuck in this kind of like weird spot where it's like, all right, well, this game's 2 years old. I sold it for $1. The art assets were drawn by hand, and would
Hmm.
need to be completely redone
Yeah.
for it to not look like shit on the iPhone 4. So it's like, okay, well, and on top of that, it's like, oh, and I sell like 3 copies a day.
Yeah.
So, a lot of developers, like unsurprisingly, were just like, man, I'm fuck this. Like I'll just make something new
Yeah.
with that same amount of effort, and then their old stuff was just kind of like left, just sort of chilling.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like like thinking back on it, I think that really was the start of when you saw that split between like, hey, what's going on? Like, why aren't you updating this? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think anything, I can't remember anything before then that was like, hey, this is significantly not great or broken.
Well, you also get the same problem as like when HD TV was starting to come around and everyone was getting an HD TV, but then certain channels didn't broadcast in HD and it looks like crap on HD TV. Like it looks significantly worse, a standard definition,
Oh, yeah.
than it would just on a regular TV. And you had sort of that same effect with the iPhone 4 where this crazy high resolution screen, even if some of the games were still working, it was like noticeably blurry and bad looking.
Yeah.
And so that always stuck out and it was always annoying, in the same way that like, them changing the screen size to widescreen. And if a game, they're like, hey, all the old games still work, but, they just have these black borders, but like it was annoying enough to be a turnoff to not want to play a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So that sort of really sucked. And, like over the years, obviously we've complained a bunch about the 32-bit, 64-bit cutoff, like that smoked out the TouchArcade app and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like unreasonable for, to expect developers to continue supporting things that they're like some developers like actively even like lose money on the App Store keeping their old stuff up because they have to pay $100 a year to stay on there.
Yeah.
So anyway, these guys kind of like laid all that out, and I was like, damn, well, this sounds awesome, and I would love to have some of these games that you're talking about back,
Hmm.
because when they're talking about like updating and figuring out new payment models for like the classic games of the App Store, I was like, dude, you're pushing like all my buttons right now. And
Yeah.
I know everything you're doing is a huge secret, so just like tell me as cool shit happens, just because I want to
Yeah.
stay in the loop, right?
Yeah.
And then like I don't know, the Game Club kind of like built up a lot of momentum, and it kind of hit a point where it was like, all right, I need to decide like, am I gonna join this company or am I gonna watch them? Join this company, I think, is doing something awesome that I've been
Hmm.
following for the last year to make sure that they're able to do the stuff they want to do, or do I
Yeah.
like watch someone else like take that job and then just kind of be frustrated that like it's not working as well as I would think I would be able to do it.
I look at it as like, all the hopes and dreams we've had over the years for like Apple to announce things at their various events to do with gaming and stuff like that, and all the great directions they probably should have went that we think they should have went in that they never ended up doing, was frustrating to watch from the sidelines.
Yeah. No,
And so you might be putting yourself in a similar situation where it's like, damn, these guys have a great idea and they're just going about it wrong. And I just wish I could reach in there
yeah.
and show them, with my 10 years of knowledge in this space, the right way to do things. So
Yeah.
that's cool that you're jumping in and actually taking,
So
advantage of that.
that's what I'm doing. Kind of it's a weird feeling to, I mean, because like sitting on the editorial side of things, like my power to do things about stuff like this has basically been limited to like complaining.
Yeah.
Which like, I mean, that's cool and all. Like it feels good to put out like a really scathing blog post that everyone agrees with, but like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like that's not going to change anything, and it's I don't know. It seems like a cool opportunity to try to make the App Store a better place and bring shit that I care about back. And
Hmm.
it seems like the TouchArcade community is going to really like some of the stuff that Game Club's bringing back. Which so this week we announced Hook Champ is the first game that that people are going to be able to play that are in the early access program. And
Can you say, were you involved in that game, or were they already on that before you came aboard?
well, so when they were asking me like, "Hey, what games should we get?" I was like,
Hmm.
I gave them like, I was like, "All right, here's my dream list that I would
Right.
love to have." Which like, yeah, my dream list is like, the best games reviewed on TouchArcade that are dead.
Yeah.
Um, like various Game of the Year games that no longer exist and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Hey, this shit's really cool. Like, I can intro you to some of these guys and kind of see where it goes." And
Cool.
that turns out when
Yeah.
you email someone and they're like, "Hey, that game of yours that everyone loves, it's been dead for like 6 years. Like, can we just do all the
Yeah.
work and bring it back for you and help
Right.
you make money with it again?"
Yeah.
People are like, "Yeah, that sounds
Well,
great."
it's just funny that Hook Champ is the first announced game because that's such a Touch Arcade game.
Yeah,
And like back in the day, before I started working here, I believe that was just like the hottest thing in the community with people like speedrunning all the time. That's where Mike Mead came from.
I
He came out of
believe.
the woodwork for Hook
Yeah,
Champ.
that game came out. I want to say like Halloween ish 2008. So it is like as old as it gets.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then when I really started sitting down and thinking about it, I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of games that I think like just recently I realized Space Miner is gone. And I have no idea what Venon's up to, but like that was our game of the year in 2010 or
yeah,
something like that. And it's just this fantastic, amazing game that you could easily, recommend to so many people that weren't playing iPhone games back then, but they can't download it, they can't play it anymore,
yeah.
and that's like a
I
crime.
mean, like stuff as recent as like Landsliders, our game of the year. What was
Yeah,
that? Not last year, but the year
16, I think.
before. I
Yeah,
don't. Yeah, whatever. Oh yeah, because Death Road. Well, I don't know. I
and then
don't.
Crash Lands, and then yeah,
I have no
2016.
concept of time. But yeah. So anyway, like the mission basically is like, hey, all right, let's get these like because the problem is like these games are like bona fide fantastic games, right?
Yeah,
And people like playing good games.
yeah,
Like, and I really, I don't know how much of my own farts and the TouchArcade community's farts I'm huffing here, but like, it really kind of seems like, you're seeing like just a mass, like getting close to like a mass market fatigue of like premium junk or freemium junk, right?
yeah.
Um,
I think so.
which kind of makes you wonder like if the time is right for like all these old premium games to come back for people that are like, man, I just like cannot bring myself to play another match 3 because like I played this one and I spent $200
Yeah,
on it and I got jack shit in return. And
yeah,
like and so to that person, like, is it going to be like super refreshing to just like play a game that has an end to it, that doesn't
yeah.
constantly ask you for money and stuff? Like, I would hope so,
Right.
but I don't know. So anyway, the I guess the point I'm getting at is like when Hook Champ was released in 2008, there was no other ways to make money with an iPhone game than just sell it for money.
Yeah, yeah.
And now there's like all sorts of interesting ways that in the last 10 years people have come up with to like maintain revenue in games. So basically, reboot as many of these as we can and like try to figure out how we can make them like making money long term instead of
Even
just
like something like Hook Champ, you look at from today's perspective, and you're like, okay, there was tons of unlockable hooks, there was tons of unlockable characters. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it would have been prime for like cosmetic IAP stuff that I think most people are pretty acceptable of. And then that game at its heyday had such a rabid fan base of people that loved it, and it was like $1.99 game or something like that. So
right.
some of the people that dumped just hundreds of hours into playing it, and all the speedrunners that were heavily into that part of it, I don't think would have had any problem just throwing money at it continuously because they loved it so much
Yeah.
and felt like they got it for too cheap or whatever.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know. It's a weird situation, and like what I think is really cool about getting games like Hook Champ back online is that um, there's real. And I don't mean this in a bullshitty way. Like there's real historical importance to a game like
Mhm.
that because it's like, Death Road to Canada like was a smash hit for them. I mean, that was
Yeah,
one of the few indie games that you really see that like was streamed a ton on Twitch and
yeah,
like sold a ton and stuff like that. So I think and everyone has a phone, so it's really
hmm,
neat for people. I think it will be really neat for people that are like, oh man, I love Death Road to Canada, and like, oh holy shit,
hmm,
like this was the first game they made,
yeah,
kind of thing. Like that, I think is really really cool to be able to do. Kind of like when you really like a band and you'll kind of like go back and like
yeah.
listen to like their really early albums and stuff. Like it's just kind of neat seeing because like Rocket Cat has always had like that like specific style and humor and everything else that is kind of like really found its ultimate home in games like Death Row to
Oh
Canada.
yeah, yeah. Hook Champ
Um,
is filled with all sorts of like funny, humorous bits
yeah,
that are right in line with that sort of thing. So
so that'll be really cool. That'll be the kind of stuff that I'll be working on. So I guess if anyone listening wants to suggest like specific games we should try to go after, like, you can
mhm,
hit me up in any of my various ways to reach me. Which I mean, Twitter, whatever.
yeah,
I don't care.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what I'll be doing. So um,
What was the I'm a Millionaire app or whatever?
oh, I am rich.
I am rich. Can you bring that back?
Man, I was just telling someone. I don't remember how it came up in conversation. I was telling someone about that a few days ago, and just strange times in the early App Store. Let me tell you, I'm
Yeah.
if someone hasn't written a book on
Yeah.
so actually I was thinking about this too. Like as I was kind of like looking back on like thinking of a lot of these old games in the early App Store stuff, like the amount of shenanigans that people were able to get away with
Yeah.
was seriously just bananas. And like I
Yeah.
really, if I had like one regret of being involved in this whole thing for as long as I have, it's like not keeping detailed notes of
Yeah.
like weird shit that happened.
Yeah.
Because like it's real hard to put like a specific date on like, oh, I guess I'm sure you could probably like look it up somehow, but like a specific date on like when like the app gratis stuff started to happen, and like when free
Yeah.
app a day like hit that like weird critical mass where like they went from this weird website to something that was like very important to launching your game, and like
Yeah.
all that other like weird history of the app store I think would have made for like a really interesting book, but like without
Yeah.
the specific notes on like how and when and who,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, the ramblings of a maniac that's been working in the app store for way too long, I guess, would
Right.
be that book. So, so yeah, stepping down as of, I guess by the time you listen to this podcast, I've pieced out. Jared's taken over. All the same crew is sticking around. It seems like, and all that stuff. So, do you want to get into some of your thoughts on where TouchArcade is going to go? So, I should mention like what's nice about the situation TouchArcade is going to be in without gone is that, like Jared and I both draw a salary from TouchArcade, so like when you reduce that, like the cost of running the site significantly is reduced when you lose one person. So
Yeah.
should have the flexibility to go back to doing more interesting stuff instead of like constantly figuring out how to drive more impressions for banner views and
Yeah.
all that kind of gnarly crap that we've gotten into just trying to survive over the years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I think in the short term, nothing's really going to change too much if you just read the website. It's going to continue being, reviews and news of things we think is cool and, significant stuff like that. Um, and then, but I do want to start to, as I was trying to explain to Eli, it's like getting back to our roots, which if you look at Touch Arcade in the beginning was really even that first batch of whatever it was, 800 apps on the App Store when it very first opened. And you see comments from people then that were like, "Oh, I'm so overwhelmed.
hmm
There's just so many
yeah,
options,
yeah, yeah.
And now we're in the multi millions of apps being on the App Store, and so it's like Touch Arcade even back then was like, hey, well, we're gonna keep our eye out for the cool stuff, and we're gonna try out the games that look neat, and then tell you about the ones that we think are cool and worth your time and money. Um, and so I kind of want to just get back to that sort of like mission statement, I guess. Is it's always kind of driven what we've posted about before. I mean, um, we always post something that we think is interesting to us and that we think our readers will like. But we've also gotten into the habit of posting things that we think are going to do well with traffic, because it's just
Yeah.
a nature of the beast is, stuff like doing guides for free to play games.
Fortnite
Um,
stories.
yeah, Fortnite stories. And, it's more and more like, um, I think that made sense for a long time, but I also think that more and more it's making even less sense, because we're rarely the one that's going to break the news of that sort of thing. And all the major companies that run like big free to play games and stuff like that usually have their own social media, usually have their own newsletters or whatever, their own forums or chats, and it's the people that are heavily invested into those games already are likely not going to be like totally surprised to see by the time we post about like a Fortnite update or something like that.
Yeah.
Like chances are they already know, and they already know everything it's about. They saw it in game or whatever. And so even, they're not going to be like, oh my God, I got to click on this story and read about this Fortnite update. It's going to be like, yeah, the Fortnite update that just came out that I know about already.
Yeah,
Um,
that was kind of a big like when were first starting to like figure out how to cover Fortnite and stuff. Um, it was sort of disheartening to talk to the kids I play Fortnite with, which I play Fortnite with actual 11-year-old children. It's pretty fun.
yeah,
Um,
probably make you better.
they're so good at the game, it's irritating. But I always ask them. I was like, "Hey, this is a weird question, but like, where do you? Because they know like so much shit about the game,
Yeah.
right? Like, anything you would ever like, the depth of knowledge is bananas. I'm always like, where do you go to learn about that kind of stuff? And it's always
Hmm.
Reddit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I read the Fortnite Reddit. I'm like, you never go
Yeah.
to like, like forums or like websites or anything
Yeah.
like that. Like even like websites that are like writing like specifically about this like new area of the map or new gun or whatever. Like no, I just read it.
Right.
Like if it's cool, like if it's cool, it'll get a link there,
Yeah. Pretty
and
much. And
I
it's
can
tough
just
for
read
us
it
to try
there.
and beat Reddit.
Yeah. Well, that's
Um,
the thing too, is that like most of the time it seems like when we get a good story that gets posted on Reddit, like it does really well, but the way that people seem like they consume content on the internet now is, all right, I'm going to read the headline, look at the thumbnail and just start commenting
yeah.
or move on to the next thing or whatever else.
Right.
Like the day
Right.
of the like high traffic long form article is gone, it seems
Right.
like. Um,
And it's interesting because like I'm a good example of this, but like when Touch Arcade first started, uh, it drew a wide variety of age ranges. You know what I mean?
mhm.
There was a lot of older gamers like me. I was, you know, going into my 30s or whatever when I first started reading Touch Arcade, and at that point in time, it was like my normal console gaming life had slowed down a lot because it's expensive and it takes a lot of time and effort to play on the TV all the time. And so I was really drawn to like the handheld nature of iPhones and iPods, and being able to have like a whole bunch of games on me anyway. And that sort of really got me back into gaming, which was a lifelong hobby that seemed like it was going to be, reaching its end. And iPhone gaming kind of renewed that for me. And over the years, I've noticed that there's a lot of people that are in that same position where they're like, yeah, I had kids and then I got married and then
Yeah.
I couldn't sit down with my Xbox for 5 hours a night or whatever. So I just kind of stopped playing games. But, you know, when the iPhone came out, it's like I found these games I could play while still hanging out with the family or not ignoring them as much as playing on the TV would. And it just kind of fit into my life better, and that's what really drew me to it. And I feel the exact same way, and I feel like those are the people that I want to cater to the most, not necessarily older people, but just people that are like, oh, I really love like actual gaming, and I really love those types of games on my phone, and I want to find more of those things. You know what I mean? So I'd rather try to focus more on like the gamey games than post every single Dragalia Lost update or whatever, um, and try to really unearth some of the cooler kind of premium, not always necessarily premium, but at least not crazy free to play grinding machines with no end or whatever. Just trying to find the things that are actually worth people's time, um, and talking about those more. And I even had an idea of maybe trying to go back and actually start writing some reviews for some of the bigger games we've missed over the past couple of years, because it's always depressing when we do our game of the year
Oh yeah,
lists
totally.
where it's like you want to link to reviews because these are great games and realize that we haven't reviewed them. And I think that's kind of a shame. So, but it also falls into that same problem of like, okay, a big game comes out, to do an actual thorough, proper review takes time and effort. And then at a certain point, it doesn't make sense to post, a review for a game that came out even a week ago, even like 5 days ago,
Yeah, like
because it's
particularly if
almost
you're
like
going for
past the
traffic,
point. Yeah,
like
if you want it to get read a lot or whatever. Um, so I think if we're not forced to focus on chasing traffic as much as we have been, then it makes sense to try and put stuff like that out just for the people that want and appreciate like actually good content, and maybe want to find some games that they'd missed over the last couple of years that we didn't have a chance to actually review or whatever. So I don't know. That's kind of the direction I want to go. I don't know how much it's going to make sense, or if it's going to be even possible. We might crash and burn and have to sell our entire selves out to some huge free-to-play company or something. Who knows? But that's what I want to at least try before we throw in the towel altogether.
yeah, that'd be cool. I really hope it works out. It'd be cool to see Touch Arcade stick around for a very long time.
Yeah.
Particularly with the crew we've got, are a crew of good dudes. So, but
And I
yeah,
will say one final note is, we've talked a long time too about how ad sales have just tanked. There was a time where all our banner ads and stuff would be sold out for like 6 months in advance
oh yeah,
constantly,
or more. I think there
or
was
more.
whenever, I think 2010 maybe, when like whatever year it was, where like the like so everyone watched all the indies make a lot of money, and then like all the big publishers
Yeah,
were like, well fuck, we got to get on the iPhone, and then
yeah,
they took them like a year to figure it out
yeah,
and spool up their titles. Like
right.
whatever time period after that, I feel like we were sold out like for a year solid,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
It
bananas.
used to be a beautiful thing because it's not even something we had to think about, and the ads were just sold, and we were going to get money for them, and know we were going to keep chugging along and have money to pay for doing what we were doing. It was nice to not have to worry. Those were the days.
Yeah.
Um, but since ad sales aren't what they are anymore, we do still try to sell ads when we can for the people that want them. But a lot of people, we really didn't pivot with this new version of the web that throws a bunch of pop-ups in your face and has really aggressive video ads and stuff like that follows you when you scroll the page and things like that. That's really what you have to do nowadays to make money,
Hmm.
and that's something that we never positioned ourselves to be able to do, but also I don't would never have wanted to do.
The problem
Uh,
there too is like the more savvy your audience is, and I feel like Touch Arcade soaks up a pretty savvy audience that like
sure.
knows their shit, which is why
Yeah.
they're at Touch Arcade. Like the higher ad block rates are.
Yeah.
Like a friend of mine was a developer for like one of the, I don't probably shouldn't name the site because I don't know if it's a secret or not, but like a top tech site,
Yeah.
and they were seeing like 70% plus ad block rates,
Yeah.
which is just fucking bananas. Like imagine how hard it would be to be any kind of business if like only 30% of the people that like came through your door and like used your resources and consumed your product
Yeah.
only did anything to help you keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a struggle. It's a huge struggle. And in a lot of instances, I don't blame people because a lot of websites are
Well, right.
virtually unreadable.
That's the fucked
Um,
part of it, is like I would always get, you would always get so annoyed when I would read people rationalizing ad blocking on like
mm,
Reddit or wherever else,
Yeah.
and be like, man, like what the fuck? Like we work really hard and all we ask in return is for like a, like 300 pixel by 100 pixel thing
Yeah.
that you look at as you're on our website. Like that's
Yeah.
it. But then like, you think about it a bit more and like you read people's complaints and it's like, man, like fuck ads with auto playing audio. I hate those. And like, oh my God, I hate
Mm-hmm.
those like full screen takeover
Mm-hmm.
ads that like make you wait 10 seconds before you can see the website and like all this stuff. And it's like the internet has become such a place where it's like so hostile for people that aren't running ad blockers that like
Yeah.
it's like I can't really blame people anymore, which fucking sucks because you know
Well,
small
we've always
websites
gone,
that don't do that shit.
and we've always gone out of our way to make sure our ads are unobtrusive, and that they're at least like relevant to stuff that you might want to read when you're reading TouchArcade. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We've like put effort into that and have told people like, no, we don't want to advertise, this, that, or the other thing. When we had the luxury of turning down
yeah.
that
Like
sort of stuff.
I remember when we were first coming up with like our ad policy, and this was ages ago, but
Mhm.
like it might still be like what Marianne sends out. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
like you can't have like a GIF that blinks. You
Yeah.
like if it animates, like it has to like I think there's like a limit as how many times it can loop. I don't know. Like
Hmm.
we came up with a lot of stuff purposefully to make it so like you don't have those like seizure inducing like click here kind of dumb ads.
Yeah. And
Um,
it does suck. And I also, I don't blame a lot of people for not wanting to put up with most of the other bullshit that other websites do. But as a site that's tried to do right by all that, we get caught up in that mix. Very few people know about whitelisting a site they like, or, whatever.
yeah.
And so we kind of get caught up in that, whether we're doing it the right way or not, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, I
Um,
really wish like when ad blocking plugins like started to become a thing, like the people that made them kind of made it a bit more so it's like, hey, if you're on a website that's super annoying, like you push this button and the ads go away.
for this site. Yeah,
For
yeah,
this
yeah.
site, instead of like, okay, like here's download this thing, subscribe to this rules list, and you'll never see another ad again. Doesn't matter if
Yeah,
there are people like
yeah,
us that like really go out of their way to like curate ads so they're not
yeah,
annoying, and like the online casino pop-up junk that
yeah.
other people are running.
That
So
is, I've never thought about that, but that is such a shame because that would have worked so much better. Because then you
yeah,
could just be like, this website is aggressive as hell. I'm gonna block it.
I mean, but
And then the websites where it doesn't bother you, you're not even noticing anyway. You're not gonna like block.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, I don't know.
Um,
There's a lot
so
of, if I could go back and change things in the history of the internet,
yeah,
I don't know where that would even be on the list, honestly.
yeah,
So yeah. I don't know. I guess that's the site update, changing of the guard, etc. I don't know. What else is there to say about that?
um, I don't know.
I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't know. I feel like it seems like a big deal now, but I think it's gonna feel like just business as usual. Like doing the podcast on Friday, like we're sharing a hotel room at GDC, and like like I don't know. Like I'm still super into TouchArcade. Like I want to like keep
Yeah,
helping where I can, and like
yeah,
all that kind of shit. Like I'm just not going to be such a financial burden on the site anymore, and I'm going to be focusing on working on something that I think TouchArcade people are really going to like. So
yeah. It's weird how I don't know when you finally revealed what you were up to. I was like, man, this is. I felt the need when I posted about it to put a disclaimer, but I also felt like anybody in their right mind would know that whether you're involved or not, this is something we would totally be all
yeah,
over.
yeah,
And so I wasn't really worried about people thinking like, oh, you're just shilling Eli's new job or anything like
yeah.
that.
It's like okay,
This is
find one
genuinely
person reading TouchArcade that wouldn't be stoked as fuck to play Hook Champ
right.
again.
And so, yeah, I genuinely excited to see what happens. I think going forward, like, there can be a lot of kind of back and forth relationship because we're always going to want to be talking about what new games might be coming back too.
Right, right.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be kind of like we'll still be working together in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, no, and it'll be cool too because like I feel like I'll be in a position to help the site more, like when we have
Mhm.
money to advertise and stuff like that. Like obviously the
Yeah,
Touch Arcade's going to be like our prime audience and shit like that. So,
yeah.
um, so yeah, hopefully, I don't know, everything just works out really good for everyone, and everyone is happy at
We'll
the end of the
see. I
day.
mean, the last couple of years have been such a struggle that it's been. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times I feel like I've been just on cruise control in a lot of ways, not really uh,
Yeah, it has been.
excited like I used to be because it's just been like, what the hell is going to happen with our site? Is it going to shut down? Is it, you know what I mean? Like it's always
Yeah,
been this constant anxiety going on or whatever. So I think for both of us, for you, it's probably a renewed excitement to be doing something new, and to be trying out something that's, a
yeah,
new thing, trying to make it be successful, whatever. Um, and I feel like that just the change, um, is exciting for me too, to see what can happen with Touch Arcade if we can maybe find a new direction that works or make things better for ourselves or whatever. I don't know. I think change is
yeah.
good.
What I kind of wonder, and it'll be interesting to see kind of like where this goes. Is it always was kind of a big struggle for me to like figure out like what do you do to get people to like really back the site on Patreon. I mean, like right now we do the
Yeah,
video podcast, and our most hardcore fans like really love this shit.
yeah,
Um, but it was always really hard to come up with any kind of justification for like more Patreon exclusive content than that, because it was always
yeah,
like, okay, well, like say for instance, like what was the last free to play game guide we put up was that Skylanders one, right?
yeah,
So a guide like that exists. So when people go to Google and type in, I don't even know how to unlock Spyro or whatever, like they
right.
find that guide and they come and they
Hmm.
click it and read Touch Arcade and stuff like that. So like having that guide behind like as like a Patreon backer exclusive thing, like oh yeah, all right, we worked extra hard on this like cool article just for
Yeah,
you guys, like thanks for supporting us, like that would actively hurt us more than it would help us.
yeah, yeah,
But like if you could figure out a way to not be so dependent on like all that Google traffic stuff, like at that point
yeah,
like it begins to make a lot of sense to uh start putting more and more stuff on Patreon
yeah,
to kind of be like, all right, like, well, dude, if you want to read the review of, I don't like whatever game you can come up with that came out last year that is really
yeah.
worth the review, but it didn't, like maybe that goes up on Patreon like a week or
Hmm.
two ahead of time,
Right.
or maybe it only goes up on Patreon. Like I don't know how that would all work out, but that was always kind of the problem, is there was no real great like value proposition for Patreon people beyond I like Touch Arcade, here's money
Yeah.
kind of thing. Whereas like most, if not all of the Patreons I back. So like for instance, like the Doughboys podcast, which I really like,
Hmm.
they do. You get 2 episodes per week. So if you aren't a Patreon subscriber, you only get access to half the content they put out.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they kind of like, because it's like a comedy podcast, like they kind of like reference previous episodes a lot. And if you aren't on the Patreon, like you still listen, and it's a funny show and really enjoyable and shit. But it's like there's that like real genuine feeling of like FOMO,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh man, I wish like I got this joke that they're talking about from like the other
Yeah.
podcasts
Right.
from this stuff. So like,
Yeah.
so that for me was really easy to be like, yeah, dude, sure, like here's $5. Like I love the
Yeah.
stuff you guys do. Like I want all the content instead of half the content.
Yeah.
Because like when you're a podcast, you're not beholden to like, all right, how much Google traffic can I generate on this
Right.
episode kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
a little different, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
I was thinking that I'd like to focus more on, trying to get more people to sign up for Patreon, knowing that they're going to try and be getting more good content or whatever. And something that I thought of was maybe having, if we go back and do back reviews, or maybe even re-review really old games that have gotten a lot of updates, or weird things like that, putting them behind, a Patreon paywall, just for those sort of hardcore people that like us enough to pay us to get it early or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, and trying to think of some other things too, like maybe even like hosting giveaways or something like that. Something to motivate somebody to be like, okay, I'm going to give you some money per month, like a
Yeah.
subscription.
It's a delicate balance of like,
Yeah.
how do you make people like feel like just enough FOMO that they're like, all right, yeah, cool, I'm in.
Yeah.
without like getting mad that like, because that was always my struggle, was like figuring out like, okay, like we could do this stuff, like we
Yeah.
put reviews on Patreon and stuff like that, but like, how do you make the people mad that maybe have supported the site, or how do you avoid making the people mad that like maybe have supported the site for like 10 years by like commenting in
Yeah.
every article and like tweeting
Right.
everything we do, and it's
Yeah.
like all those things, like, you know, interactions have value too, engagement has
Sure.
value.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's a weird world being in
It's a
online
nut we
publishing.
haven't been able to crack for 10 years. So,
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm really stoked to see kind of like what comes of all this, and I don't know. See, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I can
me
help in
too.
some small way. And
I'm rejuvenated for the future right now. After being kind of down in the dumps about everything for a while. So,
yeah, well, I mean,
um,
you got a lot of stuff coming up between like, you know, figuring out like a new direction for Touch Arcade, like Pam's super pregnant and
yeah.
all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So exciting times ahead all over.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned that on the podcast before.
Oh, sorry, was I not supposed to?
No, I
I can
actually
edit
don't
that
care.
out. Oh, okay.
It's not. It's going to be pretty unavoidable. She's due in about a month. So.
Man, that is crazy. And you
Yeah.
guys didn't you didn't do any kind of gender reveal or anything, right?
Nope. Don't want to know the gender till baby's born.
Have you picked out names at least?
We have gone over some, and then what we need to do is really finalize kind of a short list, and then
Man,
have that ready going
you
in.
guys are really shooting from the hip.
Yeah,
Seems
pretty
like
much.
everyone else I know that has had a kid has been like,
Yeah.
I want to know the gender the second
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can see it, and
Yeah.
then I'm gonna like get everything themed to whether it's a
Yeah.
boy or a girl, and we're gonna have the name finalized.
Well, what's interesting is like, so everyone we've told that we're waiting to find out, the reactions have been older people have thought that was awesome, and younger people have thought, I don't get it. Like, what are you doing? And I think there's like a real divide. And like, like my parents' generation, I think finding out the gender was one of those things that was like not even always correct. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
Yeah.
it looks like a boy, but then it comes to, oops, it's a girl. Like, whatever. Nowadays, it's like the technology and stuff. It's like, oh, no doubt, this is what you're having,
I'm
and you can
surprised
know.
that you guys were able to actually avoid just finding out on accident, because like, so friends of mine had a kid
Yeah,
last year, and like they showed me printouts of like the ultrasounds they can do now, and man,
yeah,
it's like a fucking photograph almost, you
yeah.
know?
You actually have to go in. There's this really intense, whatever ultrasound they do at a certain point during the pregnancy, and go in and look at and measure every little tiny bit of this baby,
Man.
and so you have to tell them ahead of that, hey, we don't want to know the gender. And at a certain point, they
Like
go,
spoilers, look
okay,
away.
yeah, look away. I'll tell you when you can look again,
Oh my God.
because you would know by looking just at the screen. And then the printouts that she gave us too were specifically ones that didn't,
A giant censored bar over
yeah,
the groin area. I don't know. Like, I think it's really cool that you guys are doing that, but like the planner in me, that would drive me fucking bananas, because
it's
like,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's
Like
hard not knowing, but the way Pam explained it was like how many times you get to be like truly surprised in your life. And that's kind of true. I mean, we live in an age where you sort of know, you can know everything about anything at any moment, and so this is something it's cool to have it be a surprise, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's neat. So I'll
See.
be following baby Jared very closely. Here's a question for you. Are you guys going to be, so I'll ask you this question without my personal bias injected into it to
Okay.
appropriately be able to judge your response.
Okay.
Are you going to create an Instagram account for your baby?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, if I haven't made one for my dog yet, I don't know. But
Okay, good.
um,
That's the correct answer.
yeah, it's interesting because like we did kind of bring that up the other night. We're like, what are we gonna do? Like posting pictures on social media? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't really post anything now, anyways. But I feel like once you have a kid, you want to share more, and obviously you have family and friends that want to see that stuff too that you don't get to see in person all the time.
Yeah.
So I imagine just my normal Instagram, Pam's normal Instagram, will probably be just filled with baby pictures. I don't think I'll make anything separate
So
for it.
what I was thinking about that, and I don't know, I might be an absolute lunatic with this, and like maybe I'll think differently if I ever have a kid, but like, um, I don't know if I want to even post photos of my kid online, like full
Yeah.
stop.
I had that thought too.
Because like when you think about it, like it's really kind of interesting. And sorry for people listening to this expecting us to talk about iPhone games. This is a special occasion. Um, when you think about it, like when we started putting shit on the internet, like in like the AOL days, or I guess maybe after that when stuff started to become a little bit more permanent on the internet, like you just threw shit up there because like there was no thought about like, oh, eventually this will be searchable, or eventually there'll be algorithms to find this, or like whatever else. And it just kind of like, and knowing like how much that has advanced to the
Yeah.
point that like when I post a photo on Facebook that has Lindsay in it, like she gets automatically tagged without me doing anything because
Yeah.
like they recognize her and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
it feels weird to be like blasting all these photos into like a algorithmically based database that's like constantly running like all sorts of weird AI shit on everything you upload,
Yeah.
to think like what kind of profile could they build for you
Yeah.
if they had every photo of every life stage
Yeah.
of you online.
No, it's very creepy to think about. It's definitely something to think about. I'm not totally opposed to just not um, sharing stuff too. I mean, I can always start like a iCloud, photo album with my family and friends that I care that might want to see
Yeah.
baby pictures or whatever, and feel a lot more comfortable doing that. But it's definitely a strange thing because if somebody took all my baby photos and they were just online, how would I feel about that? I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
like that's
stoked about that. So when little baby grows up and all of a sudden has all these baby pictures that are just everywhere,
that's
um,
weird.
and that's someone like me that like I'm not a crazy social media person. I think about some of the people I know that it's like every beat of their life
Mm-hmm.
is documented in social media, including stuff with their kids. And yeah, how are they going to feel when they grow up someday and have their entire life is there somehow digitally on the
Yeah.
internet?
I
That's
mean,
a
what's
crazy thing.
what's weird to me about it is to think like, like when I look through like old photos, like old Polaroids and shit like that, it's like um there's definitely a lot of pictures from when I was a kid where like I am very happy that only one copy exists, and like,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
just like doing like
Yeah.
embarrassing stuff,
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
other things like that. And it's weird to think now that like so imagine, you've got a universe where like you're one of those like Instagram moms, right? Where you just are uploading absolutely everything your kid does. And then like that kid goes on to like, I don't know, like, run for president or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. And it's like, oh, here's a picture of baby Jared, maybe abusing the cat. You can't really tell. It
Yeah.
looks like he's about to hit him,
Yeah.
kind of thing, like that. That's, it's just kind of crazy to think. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. The flip side of that is like nowadays it's like kids by the time they're like in grade school are all
Well, yeah,
about
that's,
social media and posting every little thing too. So maybe they just don't care because they're growing up in this time,
I
and it
guess.
just feels weird to us because this wasn't around when we were kids.
Yeah, I mean, when I watch people that I know that have kids that are teenagers, like they like particular. It seems like Snapchat's kind of been traded for Instagram stories, but it's like
Yeah,
it's fucking annoying. It's like, dude, you don't need an Instagram story because we just got ice cream at McDonald's. Like
yeah,
this is a
yeah,
99-cent ice cream cone. You're gonna get
right,
10 million of these in your lifetime. No one
yeah,
cares that you got it.
yeah.
Why are you taking a video of it?
It's a trip, and I
Kind of thing,
probably will never get it.
So I don't know, but yeah, I guess so. That's you got any other off-topic shit we should talk about, or should we just make this the changing of the guards
If
podcast?
I really thought hard about it, I probably could think of something.
Um, I'm back into watching The Walking Dead because I hate myself.
Oh yeah,
Do you watch Walking
do they
Dead?
still make new ones?
Yes, they make. Of course, that show will be. I'll be 80 years old, and they'll still be figuring
I
out how to
thought it
make.
was supposed to be like the last season recently or something. No?
No, they did some bamboozle where like they switched who the main character is. I think I haven't gotten that far, but I definitely remember the commercials where it's like, oh, the final episode with Rick. Still
Uh,
going.
my recent thing I've been doing, I started, when did I start this? Probably beginning of December, because it was right when I signed up for Verizon and got free YouTube TV. Um, I've been watching every episode of The Simpsons from the start,
Oh man,
and
that's
I'm
ambitious.
on. It's interesting because it's like good background fodder, and especially the first 10 seasons are ones I'm real familiar with.
Hmm.
And then I'm on like season halfway through season 18 now, and it's been really interesting because there's a lot of them in those teen seasons that I actually had seen. It's funny because it kind of coincides with, I've watched The Simpsons since it started,
Oh yeah,
and then was very. It was like the most important thing to me ever to watch the new episode every week.
right.
And
It's
then you
on
get into high
Thursday night.
school, and
Remember when
yeah,
it was new?
and then you get into high school, and then you move out of your house, and then you're moving in with friends, and blah blah blah, and then suddenly catching every new Simpsons stops being like a priority.
Yeah.
And so I really catch them very sporadically during like my 20s and stuff. So it was interesting to see that there was a lot that I had seen through those teen years, because I'd always imagined in my mind I've only really familiar with like the first 10 or so seasons. But I also feel like you hear so many people talk about how bad it got after a certain amount of time, and I don't think that holds true. Maybe it's helped watching them in a row or whatever. I definitely think there was a golden era. Um, you know, seasons 2 through like 6, 7, 8 were just like amazing, amazing, amazing years. But I still feel like it didn't necessarily get bad. It was always still really funny too. I haven't come across too many like clunkers.
Well, so my problem with The Simpsons now, which I will get
Mhm.
into on this mobile games podcast,
Yeah.
is that I feel like they made a poor decision in like trying to keep like so The Simpsons, like the reason I feel like the good season, like the first 10 seasons were so good is because it was just kind of like a timeless sitcom.
Hmm.
Like if you know, like there was no cell phones, like it was like
Yeah.
I don't know. And then when they decided like, oh well, we'll kind of take the South Park approach and kind of
Hmm.
like start to incorporate like very current pop culture references,
Yeah.
like that to me, like going back to watching episode, because I when it got on like Fox Now or whatever it is, like I
Hmm.
watched an unbelievable amount of it. But like
Yeah.
if you go back to watching Simpsons from like, I don't even really know when this shift happened, like 10 years ago or whatever, and it's like, oh, here's the episode about like the hanging chads in Florida, and it's like it just feels extremely dated, and like with how all that panned out, like it's just kind of like awkward and not really funny anymore,
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. And I just kind of like really wish they just would have stuck to like silly things in Springfield.
Hmm.
And like, I guess they always had like weird little references, like the character cameos that were like, oh, this is Michael Jackson but not really, kind of thing,
Yeah.
versus like an entire episode and like, oh, Bart stands in line to get an iPhone, kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my
Yeah,
my
I think it's
gripe.
hard to not do that though too. A show that runs so long, how many totally original ideas can you have? They're
Yeah.
going into they're in their 30th season or whatever. So it kind of makes sense. And you're right. If you having pretty freshly watched those first early seasons or whatever, they do point out current events and stuff like that at the time. Not so much in a way that makes it feel dated, I don't think.
I
But
just seem to remember like it would be like if you follow the news and stuff, like there might be like a reference that like you would get and it would be
mhm,
subtle.
yeah.
It wouldn't be
What's really funny is to think back when The Simpsons was like the biggest rage the first few years it came out, and it was edgy, and it
Mhm.
was
Oh
considered
yeah.
so edgy at the time. And you go back and you watch these now, and you're like, dude, damn, I can't believe this was considered edgy.
Dude, even
Uh,
early South Park, if you watch like South Park
oh
season
yeah,
1, I remember like feeling like I was doing something wrong watching South Park when
yeah,
it first came out. Now like you watch
yeah.
season 1, it was like, man, this is what people were pissed about.
This was tame, yeah.
And
So
The
it's kind of
Simpsons was
crazy.
that was like an entire extra step of tame beyond South Park even. And
Yeah. Oh, totally.
yeah, I remember
Uh,
that. I remember that
it's
quite
kind of
well.
crazy, but I am really enjoying it. I think maybe once I start getting into the 20s, there will be more duds. But I do think even in the episodes that are kind of slow, there's still some really funny parts. I think one of the big things that happened is they almost knowingly became caricatures of themselves.
Mhm.
And so it was like, here's a Simpsons episode, and we're going to go on this wacky adventure, and here's Homer doing his wacky Homer thing or whatever. Like they were very self aware of themselves, but they almost make fun of that too in a way that I think is really clever. They're like, "Oh, look, we haven't been to this country yet. Here's the episode where the
Yeah.
Simpsons go to Africa, or
Right.
whatever." Um, and they kind of poke fun at themselves for that, which I think is kind of cool too. So whatever, it's my favorite show of all time, hands down, and it's been really enjoyable to kind of revisit all the ones that I've loved and then catch some new ones here and there too.
Yeah.
It's been kind of cool.
So I guess in conclusion,
Mobile games.
if you
are
want to
cool.
follow what I'm up to after Touch Arcade, you can follow me on Twitter at Hodap, or sign up at gameclub.io. That'll be my new thing. Jared's going to be taking over. A lot of cool shit coming up to be excited for with Touch Arcade, and you should watch The Simpsons. I think that's
pretty concise. Those are the
recap.
bullet points I want people to take away from this
guess.
episode.
Oh, and Jared's having a baby soon. So
Yeah, that's also important.
was-
Watch The Simpsons, but also having a baby.
Yeah. So cool. Well, that's this week's episode of the Touch Arcade Show. Sorry there wasn't much actual on topics talk. It was kind of a fun episode. Well, I guess I'll keep being on the podcast, so it's not like
You'll
last
keep
week.
being here, but in a way, it's a farewell episode.
Yeah, I guess. So yeah, it'd really be cool if you guys support the Patreon at patreon.com/TouchArcade. If you aren't into subscription stuff, don't want to give your credit card to Patreon, I get it. Got other problems with them. That's cool. But everyone shops on Amazon, which you can do through toucharcade.com/Amazon. It's super appreciative. And if you want to send us an email, it's podcast@toucharcade.com. Actually, I haven't looked in that inbox for a while. I don't know if we got some stuff, but we might. So with that, we will catch you on another episode of the Touch Arcade Show. Thanks very much for listening.